A mosquito bite that turned septic. A fever that would not break. A man dead 6 weeks after entering a sealed tomb. For a century, newspapers called it the curse of the pharaoh. Science has a different name for it, and it was growing on the walls the entire time. On a cool November morning in 1922, Howard Carter stood at the edge of the Valley of the Kings, brush in hand, eyes fixed on a patch of hard-packed earth. The dig had dragged on for years, and the final season's money was almost gone. Then, with a scrape of a workman's tool, the first stone step appeared beneath the dust. Carter pulled out his pocket diary and wrote, "First step of the tomb discovered." He wasted no time. At 7:30 a.m. on November 4th, he sent a telegram across continents. "Sir, I have found a tomb, a most remarkable and wonderful find. I shall be here at once." Within days, the sealed doorway was exposed. The ancient plaster still bore the royal stamp, untouched for over 3,000 years. Carter waited for his patron, Lord Carnarvon, to arrive. The two men, so different in health and temperament, stood side by side as Carter pressed a thin iron rod into the mortar. He raised a candle to the opening, peered inside, and whispered the question that would echo for generations. "Can you see anything?" Carnarvon's voice trembled back. "Yes, wonderful things." Behind that wall, the darkness hid more than golden shrines. The official inventory would later count over 5,000 objects: jewels, chariots, beds, and the mask of a forgotten king. Each item catalogued by hand, each number etched into Carter's records. The world's press began to circle, hungry for details. The doors of the tomb, once sealed by priests, were now open to the living and to whatever else waited inside. Within days of the tomb's opening, headlines began to circle the globe. The Boston Evening Transcript warned of a curse set upon the boy king's grave, whispering that the walls themselves exhaled a deadly malediction. In London, the Times followed with its own warning. Death, it claimed, had followed the opening of Tutankhamun's tomb. American papers joined the chorus, their front pages splashed with the words, "The Curse of the Pharaoh." A physician quoted in the New York Tribune spoke of swift and terrible ends for any who disturbed the king's rest. Obituaries arrived almost as quickly as the stories. The Daily Mail ran its notice the morning after Lord Carnarvon's death, linking his fever and collapse directly to the tomb. The Cairo Gazette noted the city's sudden darkness, as if the passing of the Earl had drawn a shadow over the electric lights. Each detail, each coincidence, was woven into the legend. The press did not wait for science or autopsy. Instead, they tallied the dead: Carnarvon, a financier, a photographer, a radiologist. 8 names appeared on early lists, their fates bound together by rumour more than by medicine. The number grew in the telling, as newspapers in London, New York and Cairo copied each other's reports, repeating the same grim tally. With every headline, the curse grew stronger. The world's imagination was captured, not by what lay in the tomb, but by what seemed to follow those who entered it. The myth, once whispered in the desert, now belonged to the world, and behind every printed word, the shadow of the curse lengthened. 58 people stood at the threshold of Tutankhamun's tomb in the winter of 1922. Their names fill the payroll sheets, permit registers, and death records. Archaeologists, financiers, Egyptian foremen, and a handful of guests. Only 8 would die within 12 years of that moment. The rest, 50 souls, lived on, their lives stretching into old age, far from the Valley of the Kings. Yet the list of the dead became legend. Lord Carnarvon, struck down by fever and infection, a radiologist, a financier, a photographer, and several local workers. Each death was tallied, each coincidence whispered as proof of the curse. Howard Carter, the man who breathed the tomb's air more than anyone, outlived nearly all of them. He spent years inside, cataloguing 5,000 objects, returning again and again to the sealed chambers. Carter died in 1939, 16 years after Carnarvon, of natural causes at the age of 64. The numbers do not align with the myth. The pattern is uneven. Most survived and a few did not. The question lingers in the silence. Why did some fall, while others, like Carter, walk away untouched? Long before the tomb was opened, Lord Carnarvon lived with a shadow over his health. Years earlier, a car accident shattered his ribs and left his lungs fragile. The pain never fully faded. He traveled to Egypt searching for treasure, but also for relief. He wanted a dry climate and the promise of something extraordinary. When the sealed chamber finally gave way in February 1923, Carnarvon was among the first to step inside. The air was heavy, untouched for centuries. He ran his hand along the stone, brushing dust from the gold. Days later, a small cut appeared on his cheek just below the eye. He believed it was a shaving nick, or perhaps the work of an insect. The wound reddened, then swelled. Fever crept in, slow at first, then relentless. Carter kept working, cataloguing artifacts, while Carnarvon grew weaker in his hotel room. His daughter wrote that he could barely breathe. Medical notes from the time describe a cough, mounting chills, and a body that would not heal. By the 5th of April, 1923, the Earl was dead. That was 6 weeks after he first entered the burial chamber. For those who believed in curses, it seemed like fate. For those who knew his story, it was a tragedy written in flesh and bone. Inside the tomb, the air was thick and unmoving. For centuries, dust and darkness had pressed against the walls. When the seal broke, a silent cloud drifted out, unseen but deadly to the unprepared. Later, when the chamber was studied, researchers found traces of Aspergillus flavus on every surface, microscopic spores numbering in the tens of thousands per cubic meter clung to the linen wrappings and the old wood. In laboratory tests, these spores proved capable of surviving for centuries, waiting for a breath of fresh air to set them loose. Medical records from 1973 tell a parallel story. In Warsaw, a team opened a medieval crypt sealed since the Black Death. Within weeks, 2 conservators fell ill with acute respiratory distress. Autopsies revealed lungs filled with fungal growth. The diagnosis, aspergillosis, matched what the tomb scientists found in Egypt. Both cases shared the same invisible enemy. The connection between ancient dust and modern death was no longer a matter of rumor. It was written in the medical charts and confirmed by metagenomic assays. The curse, it seemed, had a name, and it was living in the walls all along. In a sterile laboratory nearly a century after Carnarvon's last breath, a team of researchers worked late into the night. Their focus was not on ancient gold, but on the invisible enemy that once haunted the tomb. From a single swab taken from the wall of that burial chamber, colonies of Aspergillus flavus grew under glass. The fungus that once clung to linen and wood, waiting in darkness, was coaxed to reveal its secrets. In 2025, a new compound was isolated, one that in early trials triggered the death of cancer cells in a dish. The effect was precise, sparing healthy tissue, striking only the malignant. There is no approved therapy yet, only hope and data. The organism that once filled a sealed tomb with danger now offers a faint promise to the living. The curse was never real. The tomb was contaminated, not haunted. What once ended lives now holds the possibility of saving them. Carnarvon's story echoes in the quiet of the laboratory, where menace becomes medicine and the past offers up a cure. A century ago, a hidden fungus claimed a life and birthed a legend. Now that same organism is being tested in cancer labs. Its poison is a possible cure. The line between curse and cure blurs, reminding us that every tomb holds answers for the living. Share your thoughts below.